The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Number 2. Blue Dwarf Cigarettes. British made by British Labour. Captain Nemo. 1867. Miss Mina Murray. 1897. Alan Quatermain. 1888. Dr. Henry Jekyll. 1886. Edward Hyde. 1886. Holly Griffin. 1897. Campion Bond. 1888. C. Auguste Dupin. 1841. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. A tremendous expanse. We are proud to present Mr. Alan Moore, the world-famous Northamptonshire Nightingale, famed for his verbal recitations and comical narratives. Fresh from the acclaimed season, The Eltham Mutual Improvement Hall, we bring you the lightning chalkboard impressions of Mr. Kevin O'Neill, the Tuppenny Tintorero, and his remarkable satirical likenesses. Plus, full supporting program with that much-loved Roger the Rainbow, Mr. Benedict de Magmalier, and the lexicographical legerdemain of Mr. William Oakley, demonstrating his remarkable polychromacticon as admired by the crowned heads of Europe. A laugh, a song, and 26 letters. Plus, our master of ceremonies, music hall's golden lad of comedy, Mr. Scott Chase Me Kaiser Dumbier, with his many amusing skits and routines. Mr. James Lee, the editorial director of the Firewall Theatre, of which Mr. John Nee is Vice President, General Manager of the Fire Prevention Officer. God bless Her Majesty. The Quarter, St. Roch, Paris, June 28th, 1898. My dear Mr. Bond, I believe we have located the gentleman that we were sent to find. He has a flat in the Rue Richelieu, not far from the notorious Rue Morgue. During our visit, Mr. Quatermain, for my highly overrated is a pugilist, was overtaken almost immediately. Fortunately, my contact, the Chaplain Dupin, though elderly, proved to be made of sterner stuff, and shot the creature in the face.
You little shit!
Blowing half his ear off served only to further irritate the monster, and stepped forward with his cane raised like a club. Luckily, by this time, Mr. Quatermain had some small degree and regained his composure.
Let go of me. Let go of me, I say. I'll eat your head. I'll tear your stomach out, you little maggots.
One side, mademoiselle. I have a shot at him. No, you'll hit Quatermain. No, Dupin, shoot him now.
Bastards! Little bastards! Poison me! You've poisoned me, you little bastards!
Mademoiselle, the gun.
Oh, bloody, stinking. Oh, I'll shove that. Shove it.
2. The Ghosts and Miracles. Mon Dieu, what the horror! Have we killed it? I don't know. We'd best go down and find out for ourselves.
What happened? Did we get it?
We shall see. Let us hope that your laudanum did the trick. Laudanum, we shall have a word about this later, Mr. Quatermain.
Look, a chap's entitled to a few mistakes besides.
I said we shall talk later, sir. Let us first see what damage this brute has sustained. All too little it would seem. It's breathing and no bones are broken.
But look at it. What on earth is it?
He didn't look like that when he approached me earlier.
What are you saying?
That he changed. I couldn't really take it in. Monsieur Dupin, we need to get this thing down to the waterfront. I know people here. I'll find us a count. My God, that is the Nautilus, no? I never thought I might live to see it. You recognized it quickly, sir. Your knowledge is indeed compendious. What I don't know, I can deduce. That Durban gentleman, for instance, that is Captain Nemo, yes? And Mary is merely your maiden name, correct? I am divorced, and have assumed my maiden name. There were certain events. Last year in England. Yes, I know. I read a lot. Goodbye, mademoiselle. You're very brave. I hope we meet again. Having secured the subdued beast aboard the Nautilus, we took our leave. I am convinced that this appalling creature is none other than the missing doctor we were seeking, despite all appearances to the contrary. You informed me, Mr. Bond, that he vanished from London some 12 years after a scandal and was feared a suicide. Yet you, however, thought that he might do this. You were right. Which brings me to my question. Just how much precisely did you previously know of Henry Jekyll? What was I not? Why was I not briefed? The only lesson I learned, his full name, was when he woke complaining about his missing ear. I need only say the man who woke was not the man we put to sleep. I think you underestimate me. So, a pirate, a drug addict, and a changeling. Clearly you think much of me to place me in such company. Hopefully, an explanation, an apology will be forthcoming on our imminent return to London. I remain, sir, yours sincerely, Wilhelmina Mary, Miss.
Miss Mary, welcome back to the dear old Blighty. I see you succeeded in locating poor old Alan Quatermain and our alarming little doctor friend. My employee, Mr. M, is more than pleased. You really have done awfully well.
In 6 weeks, Mr. Bond, I have been almost killed on 2 occasions. If this affords delight to you and your monogrammatic superior, Mr. Mycroft Holmes, then I am, you may be sure, immensely comforted.
A waspian tongue, Miss Mary, is, to my mind, but one of the many unattractive features of the modern suffragette. Inspector Donovan, if you and your men will attend to our companions, Miss Murray and I have a matter to discuss.
Right you are, sir.
Don't be concerned. Your friends will be in safe hands with the Inspector Donovan. Splendid chap. Solves the Hetty Duncan murder single-handedly, don't you know? Oh, by the way, let's not have any more loose speculations as to Mr. M's identity. It isn't your concern.
Even when I'm risking my life for him?
These are dangerous times for everyone, Mrs. Murray. Since the great detective's death 7 years ago, the Empire's enemies have seized their opportunity. Don't you read the papers? Roba, Master of the Air, has issued vague threats from his hidden stronghold. Prime Minister Plantagenet Palliser is responding in the House today. Then, of course, the astronomer Lavelle has noticed bursts of incandescent gas from Mars. Oh, and you may have read the Reverend Septimus Harding's attack upon the so-called miracles at Miss Coote's school in Edmonton.
Having been confined within a submarine, I've read very little. What miracles would these be?
That of the Immaculate Conception, of the impregnation by the Holy Spirit. And on the occasion it would seem the Holy Spirit has outdone itself. There are 3 schoolgirls in Miss Coote's somewhat disreputable academy who though virgins, find themselves in, shall we say, a somewhat delicate condition.
How does this concern me?
I suspect that it concerns the next man that you need to be recruited to a parade of curiosities. I have his dossier for you here. A former student at the University of London, supposedly deceased last year. His name was Holly Griffin. Miss Mary, are you listening?
Forgive me, sir. I was distracted for the moment by my memories. The name of that establishment across the street.
I've heard it's an outstanding inn. What is it that disturbs you about? Of course. Nasty associations, eh? No matter. Let's join our crewmates. And be assured that whatever you and your comrades find in Edmonton could not compare with what was found in that other place. Not really. Come, our way is back here.
Well, do we have any idea what sort of horror this Bond chap is setting us up to capture this time? Scarcely. An albino man was murdered by a mob in Hintondean, West Sussex, just last year. It's assumed he was one Holly Griffin. Except that, judging from the university records, Griffin was no albino. It's terribly bizarre.
What does this Edmonton girls' school fit in?
I'm not sure. Bond seems to believe there's some connection. 3 of us will go to Edmonton tomorrow and investigate.
What about Jekyll?
Jekyll's being taken from us for some test. It's hoped that sedatives might ease its strange condition.
Or control it. Mr. Bond is no philanthropist, I fear. I fear he collects monsters.
Edmonton, North London, July 3rd, 1898.
Oh, you will be Miss Mary, and what a firm, womanly figure you present. I am Rosa Belinda Cook.
Charmed. This is my husband, Mr. Murray, and this is our manservant.
Oh, how adorable. I understand you plan to lodge your daughter here, and so wish to inspect the place. Quite understandable, though. I assure you I've maintained the same exacting standards as my predecessor, Miss Flaybaum.
I'm sure you have, although there has, of course, been mention lately of the school.
Oh, you mean our 3 Immaculate Conceptions? Isn't that thrilling? It attracts so much attention here, we're obliged to decorate.
This is insufferable, to play the manservant like some low-caste Funkawala.
You think I like playing that Harry's husband any better? We must suffer it as best as we can. And think of England.
It must disrupt your routine, having decorators here.
Oh, we don't let it. You see, here at Coots, we rather pride ourselves upon our discipline. Strictness and discipline, Miss Mary. That's the key to everything.
Well, take that, Olive Chancellor, you willful girl, and that will soon thrash your independent American ways out of you. Ah, mercy! Miss Carr, I'm dying. Wasn't that teacher being awfully harsh?
Oh, that's Katie. Our Miss Carr, she's a great believer in the school of pain. Frankly, sometimes we don't know what she's going to do next.
I see. And these supposed visitations from the Holy Spirit, are they equally unpredictable?
Well, you'd have to ask one of our little mothers, like Miss Randall of Riverboro, Maine, over there. Miss Randall, meet Miss Murray. Your experience has aroused her interest.
It was the darnest thing, man. The Holy Spirit just sort of entered into me. If it's a girl, I'm naming it Becky like me.
You see, perfectly serene about the whole affair, even if she was a little hysterical at the time. Come, since you asked to stop over at the school, I'll show you your guest rooms. They're just past the senior girls' dormitory, as you see, with decorators working here as well. Strangely enough, it's this wing that all of our little miracles have hailed from. The Holy Spirit seems to favor it. Your rooms are through here. There, a double room for you and Miss Mary, with an adjoining single for your dusky, strapping manservant. If you should need anything during the night, my room is on the first floor, next to the floggery. Don't bother knocking. Otherwise, I'll see you all at breakfast. Cheerio for now.
What a dreadful woman. And she runs her school like a bordello. No doubt the decorators are to blame for the students' miraculous condition.
It's a ridiculous charade. The sooner we have a good night's sleep and can be gone from here, the better. You, of course, will take the single room.
Women.
Women are hardly my strong point, Mr. Quatermain. No doubt you're more familiar with them.
I had a wife once, and a son. I buried both of them.
Nima, what are you doing here? Ha, yes, it's curious, isn't it? The great colonialist and the great colonial rebel. For my part, if I'm honest, I'm here because I wanted another adventure. Yes, it's hard to just stop, isn't it? When we stop, we start to fall apart. We... Miss Murray, what is that awful moaning?
I don't know. It sounds as if it came from the room down the hall.
But that's the senior girl's dormitory. They're probably just doing something beastly, like thrashing each other or...
Oh, mercy. Do come quickly. It's here again. It's got Polly. Wait, what are you saying? Who's Polly, and what's got her? Polly Wider, the Holy Spirit. She's being seized by it. Good heavens. She's being attacked. It must be some kind of supernatural creature.
Miss Murray, be careful.
Quatermain, there's something here. Something's got hold of her.
I'll help you. Oh.
Good God, you're right. I can feel something naked. It's like naked skin.
I've got it, but it's struggling. It's hard to hold on when you can't see what it's...
Mr. Quatermain, look out.
Oh.
Here, let me grab it. There, I've got it. I've got my arm around its throat. By divine Shiva, what is it? I can feel it writhing, but... Someone stop it. Don't let it get out of the room. Miss Murray, where are you?
I'm here.
Blast it. Damn you to hell. There it is. I can talk. Somebody do something.
There. Well, whatever it is, we have it. Somebody fetch me a blanket to cover it with and send out for your coach back to Wapping.
I'll handle that. Why, goodness me, what hell's going on? I was just entertaining Lord and Lady Buckingham when we heard the most fearful uproar. What is that beneath the blanket?
Nothing that need trouble you, Miss Coote. We've bagged your Holy Spirit.
What do you mean?
I mean, regrettably, that I deceived you. I am no prospective parent, but an agent of the Crown sent here to trap your spectral visitor. Now you have an injured Gale. Oh, I'm fine, ma'am, although I've been mishandled by the demon. I'm determined to remain optimistic no matter what.
Dear Pollyanna, such a plucky child.
Yes. Well, in that case, I'll join my colleagues.
Leaving us already? But your stern manner fits in so perfectly at Coots. You must visit again.
Frankly, madam, I rather doubt it. A good evening to you.
The British Museum, Bloomsbury, London, July 5th, 1898.
Well, how do you like your new headquarters here in the secret annex, Miss Murray?
It seems comfortable enough. Mr. Bond, when is Henry Jekyll to be returned to us? And what of the fiend we caught in Edmonton?
Why, they're both here already. We have them safe in observation chambers, fitted with a two-way looking glass. You can see them if you wish. Here, for example, is our Edmonton discovery. His name is Dr. Holly Griffin. He made himself invisible last year. We also secretly made a half-wit albino man invisible at first, and a guinea pig. It was the albino man who was subsequently kicked to death by an enraged West Essex mob, mistaken for Griffin. Griffin, meanwhile, fled to Edmonton and made himself very comfortable in Miss Coote's school. Inspector Donovan questioned him earlier. He thinks Griffin will cooperate with us in return for a pardon and a possible cure for his condition.
What of Jekyll? He did not seem an evil man.
Oh, Dr. Henry Jekyll is a highly moral individual, you may be sure. Mr. Edward Hyde, on the other hand, is a different story.
Sir, I'm going to ask you again. You are able to effect a cure for your condition.
A cure? You'll cure me, will you? Like a wart on Jekyll's arse? Why, you self-important little turd, unfasten these confounded straps. I'll snap your neck in two.
That would hardly be very wise of me, would it, sir? Now, with regard to a possible royal pardon...
Seems Donovan's doing his best. This fellow's a tough nut to crack. An extraordinary case altogether. Jekyll first devised a potion that would release the darker half, Edward Hyde, back in 1886. When Hyde's crimes necessitated Jekyll's disappearance, he effected suicide and fled to Paris. In the decades since then, Jekyll's metabolism altered. He no longer needed the potion to become Hyde. Any stress will do it.
Then how can he be of use of us? Mr. Bond, you haven't told us why it was decided to bring such ill-suited individuals together in the first place. What is your purpose?
An excellent question, Captain, and one which I was just about to address. Please follow me through here. I would like to introduce you to Professor Selwyn Cabot, the professor in charge of England's proposed lunar expedition. Professor, these are the operatives I spoke of.
Yes, will they get my Cavalite back? If they don't, we'll have to delay the project.
Wait a moment, did you just say lunar expedition? Absolutely all hush-hush, of course. It's planned for 1900 to mark the dawn of the 20th century.
Well, I never make that launch date now. My Cavalite, the anti-gravity material that I invented, has been stolen. I could make more, but not for proposed end of the century celebrations.
That's true. However, what troubles my employer, Mr. M, is the fact that parties unknown possess the Cavalite.
You mean that England's enemies might now be able to create, I don't know, flying machines of some sort?
That is precisely what I mean. The idea of some rival nation, say for instance, Germany, might soon be capable of subjecting England to an aerial bombardment with explosives is unthinkable. Imagine then a great distress when a notorious German air pilot named Captain Moores was first suggested as a suspect.
El Gulliver. El Gulliver, the family of Blakeney, the Reverend Doctor's son, Miss Fanny Hill, Nathaniel Bumbo Esquire,
1787. I have heard of Moores. He is a dangerous man.
He is indeed. However, it transpires that he is not a culprit. The man who is now in possession of the Cavalite, and thus the key to gravity itself, is someone far, far worse.
Worse than Moores? Is that conceivable?
Oh, yes. The man I speak of is a warlord from the Orient, but recently arrived in England. Little is known of him. It's rumored he grew up during the Opium Wars in China, and therefore abhors the British with a vengeance. We know that with brutal efficiency he has established himself as an absolute crime king of London's East End. Known only as the Doctor, he is regarded as Satan himself by such few as have survived encountering him. He has the Cavalite. Your group's job is to track him to his lair. Down east, in Limehouse.
The next edition of our New Boys Picture Monthly will continue with this arresting yarn in which the Empire's finest are brought into conflict with the sly Chinese, accompanied by a variety of colored illustrations from your artists that are sure to prove exciting with the manly, outward-going youngster of today. Alan and the Sundered Veil, authored by Mr. Alan Moore, with accompanying illustrations by Mr. Kevin O'Neill. Chapter 2, In the Ruins of Time. Within the mildewed umber husk of Lady Ragnoli's library, lyrically illuminated by the sonnets blazing the hearth, an intricately carved Taduki pipe fell from the nerveless fingers of the great, reputedly deceased explorer, Allan Quatermain. Crouched at his side and tending to the brazier upon which the crumpled leaves of the Taduki had been vaporized, the Nubian servant gave vent to a sudden piercing scream. "Marissa, my dear girl, whatever is the matter?" Lady Ragnoli, frail as some exhumed Egyptian queen, sat up as far as she was able to in her makeshift bed, formed by two hulking, worn divans pushed against each other in the firelit library center. Her wet eyes fixed an anxious, questioning look upon the servant woman, who was kneeling now beside the sprawled, convulsing body of the old adventurer. Marissa gaped in horror at the flailing, stringless mannequin that writhed before, knuckles pressed against her tropic lips, face paling visibly so that the ritual whorls of beautiful disfigurement raised on her soft obsidian cheeks stood out in dark relief. Across the palsied shadow of the chamber floor, the thin marsh heron voice of Lady Ragnoli came again, more urgently. "Tell me what's wrong. Is Mr. Quatermain alive or dead?" Marissa could not speak, trained as a priestess of the sacred drug Taduki. In the furthest eastern reaches of the Congo before coming here to assist in this dowager's experiment with the divine narcotic, she had taken on the drug's mysterious visions as a form of second sight, and did not always see things quite as others did. Now, as Marissa's disbelieving gaze
took in the spectacle of the weathered explorer twitching on the parquet flooring. She beheld a spectacle that neither she or any priestess in her long tradition had heard of, much less witnessed. Quatermain was inside out, at least. That was the first impression that Marissa gained on glimpsing the profusion of exposed internal organs, the exploded bones of an exterior skeleton, and yes, the more she watched the slaughterhouse grotesque that shuddered in the wooden tiles in front of her, the more she was not sure. It seemed to her bewildered sight as if something more subtle and peculiar were occurring. For one thing, it appeared as if the man still had flesh on the outside, but altered somehow, made transparent to reveal the inner body. And yet that was not the entire truth of things, Mr. realized as she watched in frightened fascination. It wasn't simply that one could see the body's outer layers, it was that one could see around them, to this viscera side, as from some unimaginable vantage point that looked on things through the out and saw both vistas simultaneously. Quatermain's face was visible, stunned horror frozen deep into his features, and yet somehow these were lifted out from the main mass of the explorer's head, like an expanded section in a diagram. Peering around these hanging jigsaw fragments, one could see the marble whiteness of the skull itself somehow cross-sectioned to expose the brain, unfolded through an alien planes of space, revealing naked cortex, neural marrow at its center. Every inch of the adventurer's racked body, both inside and out, was visible to the appalled Marissa in its intimate and hideous finery. Worse still, if the man's limbs moved in any way, a more terrible phenomenon became apparent. Every gesture left there in the air behind itself a stream of solid-seeming after-images, so that the movement of one horribly translucent arm would yield a fan of bones, each feathered with a foggy down of veins, like pinions from some phantom swan, some form out of an alien geometry. The non-Euclidean shape rippled before her in such violent contravention of the normal laws of governing space and reason that Marissa felt a heavy wave of nausea welling within her. Closing tight her eyes, she willed her vision to return normal, free from the grotesque perspective her Taduki-trained perceptions had so suddenly afforded her. When she opened them again, Quatermain's body had become once more a reassuring, opaque solid. Ominously still, he sprawled upon the library's chill parquet, in a death-like trance, as if far away. Marissa heard the agitated cries of Lady Ragnali. "Speak, confound you! What's wrong with Mr. Quatermain?" Marissa looked up at her as her mistress, in confusion, jade eyes dazed and blinking, like one led from darkness into light, or woken from some mystifying dream. "Forgive me, mistress," the maidservant stammered. "I have been pierced by a vision, strange and terrible. It seems to me as if your friend has not been taken to the jug into the previous life, as has transpired before, but rather torn from the past and present altogether, taken to a wasteland that's quite beyond all time or space or anything we know." Here Marissa fell silent, her eyes downcast, It was quite the longest speech that Lady Ragnali had, in all the years together, heard the ebon beauty utter, cocking her frail bird-like skull to one side as she paused, considering. The dowager at last pursed her thin lips decisively and opened up her verdict on this new and worrying turn of events. Then fetch pillows and blankets so that he at least can make his body comfortable. If Mr. Quatermain's soul has been taken from us, we must do all we can to bring it back. Without replying, Marissa stood up and hurried from the flickering library to do as she had been. In the chamber now was no sound save the reedy rattling wheeze of the decayed aristocrat herself, still sat bolt upright in the stale and yellow froth of the bed-sheets. That, and the much fainter breathing of the man sprawled all but lifeless on the floor. Oh, my dear Mr. Quatermain, thought Lady Ragnali, what dark continent are we exploring now? Quatermain had felt the consciousness torn from his body, gripped by the drug's phantasmal diamond fist. He's heard Marissa's scream, and then awareness that dashed him by a cold, obliterating light. Now he was lost. As sensibility returned, he found himself afloat, a ghostly form amidst a shimmering violet limbo. What had happened? This was not the breathtaking immersion and past incarnation that the drug had hitherto provided. All about him dream-like forms congealed from viscous twilight, half materialized before once more dissolving into opalescent nothing, smoldering ferns, and mulus spirals scintillating on the brink of substance. Scarcely had Quatermain formed the conscious wish for some navigatable geography by which to find his way, then suddenly the ectoplasmic medium about him seemed to quiver, crystallizing and condensing into landscape. There below his wraith-like feet, lush turfs of pale mauve grass grew from the mud of rich indigo, a queasy hybrid of vegetation, writhing blossoms, neither wholly cuttlefish nor thistle, sprouted from the spectral verges. These surely were marshlands of the mind, the terrible Sargasso of the psyche, where souls founded in an astral mire. Somewhere ahead of him were voices, murmuring in meager firelight glistening in the starless gloom. Advancing, the explorer beheld two incongruous figures, hunched over a dim and heedless fire, whereon burned his unpleasant squid flowers, tentacles curling themselves, withering in the queer green flames. To one side of this cheerless blaze there sat a stooped young man, lugubrious features weirdly underlit by a wan radiance of the campfire. Cross-legged in the mauve turf opposite this dreamy individual sat a person stranger yet, a strongly built man decked out in dusty grey apparel of the Southern officer of the American War between the States. Both men glanced up suspiciously at Quatermain's appearance. "I mean no harm," the adventurer said in haste, noting that the Confederate captain's hand moved cautiously towards the saber hanging at his side. "My name is Alan Quatermain, and I fear I am lost. Tell me, where are we, and how came you here? Are we alive, or dead and in some purgatory unpredicted by religion?" Here, a meaningful glance passed between the seated figures before the stooped younger man made a reply, his voice and manner mild and academic. "I am Randolph Carter. This is my great-uncle John. I fear that we are as lost as you appear to be, the young man went on to describe an improbable New England of the 20th century, a life spent in reclusive exploration of the world of dreams. During one such excursion through what a young man referred to as the gates of deeper slumber, he had strayed unwittingly into these current psychic wastelands, previously unknown to him, where he had met the shaded astral double of his distant relative, a man mysteriously lost in battle a century before. At this point, the Civil War veteran took up his tale, his low, commanding voice, almost a whisper. I don't know about this 20th century Randolph talks about. All I know is that I was dying in a cave and staring at the planet Mars just hanging there above me in the gray dawn sky. Its strong, unblinking light amidst the fading stars. Suddenly I'm wrenched from my body, just as if the pull of Mars is drawing my soul up towards it. But instead I end up in this dismal, gaseous place, where I run into Randolph, who tells me that he is my great-nephew from Providence, Rhode Island. Next thing, you turn up from nowhere. Well, not exactly nowhere, Quatermain responded. I am from England in the last half of the 20th century. It seems to have been propelled here by a drug I ingested. Normally it causes visions of time past, but in this instant it would seem to have removed me from time altogether. What is more, in my experience as a hunter, I'm not sure that this locale is an entirely friendly one. There's dozens of the things. He gestured towards the gloom beyond the greenish halo of fire. Something of bulk dragged itself through the furthest weeds. Elsewhere, a faint dry sound like a rattling lobster claw. A nervous perspiration dewed the young man's brow, and panic cracked his high-pitched voice. It sounds like we're surrounded. What are we to do? I'm hardly what you'd call a fighting man. The soldier favored his great-nephew with a scornful look. Seems the spunk has gone out of the Carter clan since my day. You'd best let me handle this. There was a satisfying hiss of steel as the Confederate captain drew his sword, not one to shrink from combat. Quatermain lifted a blazing branch of the anemone, tipped Bracken from the fire, arching it through the darkness. The swaths of emerald flame briefly illuminated something very like a monstrous centipede made of translucent gelatin, a frog-spawn cluster of a dozen eyes grouped at one end that glittered momentarily in this ghastly viridian light. Worse shapes lifted suggestively in the encroaching murk. Quatermain's voice was low and grim. There's a dozen of these things. Somehow we don't. I somehow don't think sticks and swords will rescue us from this. We'll have to... Quatermain broke off in mid-speech. Something strange was happening in the gloom before them. A faint luminescent pulse disturbed the Stygian blackness, growing stronger and more regular with every moment. The explorer gasped in disbelief as the peculiar throb of light resolved itself into a ghostly figure seated in the mid-air upon the saddle of a dazzling contraption made from brass. The man's garb not dissimilar from that of Quatermain's own era. The bright light around this new arrival and his craft seemed to alarm the squirming presence beyond the firelight's rim, prompting them to withdrawal at this. The stranger called out to the three men. Climb aboard. The novelty of my arrival won't deter these horrors long. Pausing, he thought to introduce himself. I am sometimes called the Time Traveler. To be continued.
It is imperative the British colonize the moon before the French attempt the same with their artillery shell device. Ideally, there should be Union Jacks flying over the Mare Tranquillity Titus by November 1900 at the very latest.
Professor Cavor. Memo to the Ministry of Scientific Progress. 1895.